Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Heart to Heart. My name is Madiha and we're joined by Sister Masuma Jaffer, who is a resident Alima at Stanmore Mosque, and she also has qualifications in counselling. She's counselled hundreds of individuals, families and couples on various topics and issues. Heart to Heart is all about you as the viewer. You can always email in with your questions, any problems, any issues that you may be having at home, at school, at university. And Sister Masuma will try her best to help you tackle them on both a spiritual and a religious and practical level, inshallah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We've had loads of people email in, as always, with a whole array of issues and topics that they're facing in various aspects of life. I'm actually going to go straight into it. I've got someone here that's asking a very sort of pertinent question, I think, that a lot of young people a lot of people generally are facing these days. This person said that I know that music in Islam is haram, but without music I feel like I can't breathe. I don't think I would take it further and go to a club, so I can't see the harm in listening to it. It doesn't distract me from my religious duties, but I've noticed that I get these headaches more frequently lately. Anyway, should I give up something that doesn't take me away from religion and actually brings me so much joy? Quite interesting question.
It's very interesting.
I feel like they've answered their own question in some ways.
Yes, yeah. I think the first thing that the person says is that music is haram. It's not as black and white as that.
Yeah.
I think it's important to realise that there are certain types of music that are allowed. So it's a very sort of grey area. The ruling actually says music that is played in an un-Islamic environment, that is for amusement, for amusement reasons only, is not allowed.
Okay.
Now, who decides that? You yourself.
Yeah.
So, you have to decide: are the words un-Islamic? Is the beat un-Islamic? Is it something that makes me want to dance? Because again, dancing is haram, except in front of your own spouse.
So that's an interesting one that I always get asked. If dancing is haram in front of your own spouse, what are you meant to dance to? If you can't listen to music,
you can just move, I suppose.
Okay, fine.
I don't know.
Get back to the question then.
Yeah. But it's about sort of, I think what it's trying to say is that when it's between spouses, there is no limitations as such, but everywhere else there are limitations. So what music is allowed and what isn't is a very grey area. You're not going to, one person may say, okay, this music is okay, and another person may say this isn't. What worries me is the fact that he feels he or she can't breathe without it. That is quite a huge statement to make. It seems that it's something that they feel that they absolutely require in their life, and I feel like that should make them want to stop it, because there shouldn't be
have that dependency.
Yes, exactly. Except Allah. You should only be that dependent on Allah, and if you're that dependent on anything else other than Allah, then there's a problem, because then that thing has become your focus. And although the person is saying it brings them closer to Allah, the fact that they feel they need it so much doesn't go with the fact that it brings them closer to Allah.
Yeah, and they said that it doesn't distract me from religious duties or take away from religion, but if it is haram in the aspect that we've spoken about, then that does take you away from your religious, I guess, duties or religion, doesn't it?
And the effect that it's having on the soul, again, we really don't know how the soul works. So how much effect is it having on the soul? He or she can't see their own soul and see what damage it's causing. The other thing about music is it's very, very addictive. So you may start off with maybe listening to nasheeds and then moving on, and then moving on, and that line that you felt was very strong at the beginning becomes very blurred, and you start okaying things in it, because it's so the norm out in the environment that we live in. It's very difficult then to keep those lines in bold.
And we were speaking about this earlier, but what about those songs where people would say that it brings them closer to God, or those songs that inspire you to do good, or you get some rap songs that are all about positivity and doing good in the world. Are those haram?
If they're Islamic, and again they're not, the poetry is fine. So the words themselves may be fine.
Okay.
But the music that is being played with those words is what you have to worry about. Is that music something that could be played in an un-Islamic environment? Mm-hmm. Is it something that would be considered un-Islamic? Is it something that makes you want to sort of start dancing? All of these things, I think, you need to look at it subjectively from your own perspective, and think, okay, is this really something that is allowed then? Mm-hmm. Because
if that entire song is making you do good or making you,
then listen to it without the music. Because again, a lot of people have songs which have I don't know what they call it, the a cappella version where there's no music, so you're only listening to the words. Right. So if it's the words that are motivating you, then listen to it without the music. Then that's much more powerful. They also mentioned that they get headaches.
I don't know whether it's anything to do with the music or not, but I mean,
it may be if it's really loud music. So, again, and when are they listening to it? Are they listening to it as they're going to sleep? Maybe, some people might find it difficult to just cut it off totally. So maybe sort of go down to things like nasheeds. So listening to religious, or songs which are to do with doing good and things like that, and trying to sort of then cut out the music and just listening to the words.
But should you use nasheeds or letmiya or noha as an alternative to music?
If you feel you need to, again, each person is very different. Some people connect to poetry a lot more, and others don't appreciate poetry at all. So it may be the poetry aspect of it, and you don't know because you've been listening to music up to now. So it may just be that you appreciate the words rather than the actual music. So listen by replacing it with nasheeds and latmiyas, then you're listening to the words only.
And what if it is the music? What if, I think I've had a conversation with a friend who said that the beat or the sound, because you have things like music therapy for I don't know, children in war-torn countries who they need psychosocial therapy, and music has been seen to be really effective to calm people down or take people away from negative thoughts and feelings. And obviously there are other ways of doing that too, but for some people music is a lot more effective. So what would you say in that situation where it's the actual music along with the poetry that helps? Because often you can't separate the two. You can't always find the a cappella versions of these. No. So
again, if it is music that is allowed, then that's your choice. I mean, knowing that it is very addictive, knowing that you may get closer and closer to that boundary, then just being aware of that and making sure that you don't cross that boundary is really, really important. Just because it has a positive doesn't mean it's something that is in all good. It's like, alcohol does have some positive to it. A glass of brandy may be good for colds and, keeping the doctor away, so they say, but that doesn't mean it's allowed. Now with alcohol, it's very black and white, so it's easy. It's just stay away from it. You're not allowed anything to do with it. Whereas with music, it's not so black and white. So I think you as an adult have to decide, have I got the willpower not to be pulled into haram music? Will I be able to stop myself? Do I know what the line is? And I find
it very difficult personally to know what the line is. I just avoid it altogether.
Exactly, I'm exactly
but
the same.
That's not because I think that's not because I wouldn't enjoy it or don't like listening to it. It's just because I don't know where the black and white is.
And it is very difficult.
It would be good to figure it out. I mean, to know.
And I think and again, as an adult, you need to make that choice. Is it something that I feel I absolutely need in my life? If it is, I need to make sure I know where that line is so that I don't cross it. If it's something that I feel like I can live without, and okay, it may be difficult, I might miss it, but for the greater benefit of my soul, I'll stay away from it.
So this person, you feel like because they're so dependent on it, they should try. It's like
that's
anything
what worries
that's addictive,
me.
Really.
Yeah, I think when you become so dependent on something that you feel you can't breathe without it, that's alarm bells for me. It's very concerning. It's like even something simple as tea. A lot of people would turn around and say, or when the fasting month comes, initially I start getting really bad headaches because I can't have my morning tea. Well, throughout the year, you need to sort of try to cut it down and
down,
maybe have some days where you don't have tea.
Yeah.
So you're not so addicted to it. So your body doesn't require it. You shouldn't really need anything except Allah. And I know I'm talking about, this is the goal that we're aiming for, and we're all on a journey.
Yeah.
But it's knowing that I'm trying to aim for that.
Yeah.
And and making sort of, decisions in my life where I'm recognizing that I'm getting addicted to something and sort of stepping away from it is really important.
Okay, thank you for that. It's an interesting topic always. Here I've got a young girl who's emailed in and said that as a young Muslim girl from a conservative background, my parents didn't give me much freedom, which is why I want to live away at uni this September. The thing is, my parents would never allow this and will put so many obstacles in my way, like trying to get me married off. The thing is, I want to be like other girls my age and not boxed in by what my parents and society expect of me. What should I do? That's interesting.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So she feels like she's been boxed in by her parents.
Yeah, and they wouldn't let her live away at university, and she wants to do this.
I think I would advise her to have a conversation with her parents to try to figure out where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Why are they being so overprotective? Why do they feel like they don't want her to live away? What is it that's stopping them? If she understands where they're coming from, then maybe she can ease their worries and sort of explain to them that this is why she wants to do it, and this is and they're worried about this, but she would never do this, and so forth. It may just be, as a mother, I have very limited time with you before you get married. I want to spend that time with you, even if it's just in the evenings when you come home, because you're out the whole day at uni. When you come home, I just want to see you, and I just want to have that time with you, because once you're married, then you're going to be in your own house doing your own thing.
Yeah.
Do I not have a right as a mother to ask for that? It may be something as simple as that, or it may be something like, I've grown up in this country. I know how difficult peer pressure is. I know how difficult it is when you don't have the family support, and I don't want to put you in that situation. So it's just talking to your mum and dad and finding out what is it that's stopping them from allowing you to live away from home. It's obviously coming from a place of love, and you need to understand what it is. So either you can, ease their worries, or just understand where they're coming from, so you don't resent it so much.
Yeah, and I think she said here again. She said here that she wants to be like other girls her age. But it's sort of, I guess the question is, what is it that she wants to do that she's not being allowed to do that other girls her age are doing? I mean, if it's wrong or haram, or from her parents' point of view not okay, then I guess she probably might need to evaluate herself what it is that she...
Exactly, that's the next point I was coming to, that what is it that she wants to do? It's like, what does she see? And is it okay Islamically? Is it okay from her parents' perspective? So she needs to think, by living away from home, she'll be allowed to do those things, but does she really want to go down that route? So what is it that she wants to do? And if it is okay, then why can't she do it while she's living at home? So if it's just about being able to go out, maybe it's just, she feels that she's restricted in the amount of time she has by, going out with her friends. Again, these can be things that you can negotiate with your parents. So you don't have to live away from home to get, extra time to go out, or maybe go out late at night and so forth. So it's about understanding herself, understanding her parents. She talks about the fact that her parents would stop her at any cost, even get so far as getting her married. Would they actually get her married just so that
she doesn't live out?
She doesn't live away from home, and
Probably
if they feel that strongly about it, maybe it's a conversation that they really need to have. Maybe they're thinking of wanting, her to be considering marriage. Early marriages are very highly recommended in Islam. So it's something that rather than looking at it as a negative, maybe she should look at it positive, and then she would have that freedom with and be able to share that journey with someone rather than on her own.
But the thing is, I mean, getting married will come with its own responsibilities and issues, and then but also there's so many advantages to living at home. I mean, I lived at home during university, and I got my laundry, I got fresh food every day. I was able to just have the comforts of your parents and your family, and just home around without having to worry about bills and managing your money. Obviously you still have to manage your money, but all of that kind of thing. Just the advantage of living at home was just
It's huge. And I think just having that stability of family support is really, really important.
Yeah.
Knowing when there's a wiladat, when there's a wafat, when you're at uni and everyone else is not a Muslim around you, it's very difficult to sort of keep Islam as your focus. And I was actually talking to someone who moved away from home at uni, and they felt like they had to lock themselves in their room every night because the temptation was so great, because everyone else was doing things which were so against Islam.
Yeah.
And they literally physically had to lock themselves in their room. And that was so depressing because they had no one to talk to, no one to spend time with.
Yeah.
So realizing that, the environment that we live in is not an Islamic environment, that, by you thinking you're going to live away from home, it may actually be more difficult than you think, in that, you'll be now faced with so many temptations, which, you're going to have the willpower and the strength to sort of resist and do it on your own, which is really, really difficult. At least if you have family support, it's easy. It's, if you're going home, you can say, whatever they're doing, it's like, no, I need to get home.
Yeah.
So you've got that excuse, to sort of, move away from it. And it's like you've got people that around you who have the same values, who are thinking the same way, who believe in the same thing, which is really, really important.
I guess, for this person here, because they're saying they come from a very conservative background and they don't want to be boxed in, it might be, it might be difficult for someone that lives at home to, as long as they get that freedom to be able to go out with their friends, etc., and then obviously come home at the end of every night, it might be that that's what they need. They need to be able to have that freedom, because if they're at university, to be able to socialize if they want, and then come back at the end of every night. That might be what's important.
I think, and that conversation has to happen where there's compromises made from both sides. So it's okay, you don't want me to live away from home, but then at the same time, you've got to give me freedom to be able to socialize and be out with my friends and trust that I'm not going to do anything wrong.
Yeah, so it's about conversation with the parents.
That's them down, really, really important. And I think also, she talks about her parents being very conservative. Is that from a culture perspective or a religious perspective? I don't understand this concept of they're conservative or they're really religious, because either you're Muslim or you're not. You can't sort of be a religious Muslim or a non-religious. It doesn't work. So if it's from a culture perspective, again, those conversations can be had. Look, yes, culturally this feels uncomfortable for you, but Islamically it's allowed. So, what's the problem? So knowing Islam, knowing what is allowed, what isn't allowed, is really important. So she needs to sort of do her research on Islam, and maybe this is an opportunity that God's put her in, where it'll actually bring her closer to God, because she'll actually understand the difference between what Islam says and what culture says.
But sometimes what the difficulty is that, and I think this probably happens in every sort of family and culture, that they'll say, oh, this doesn't happen in our family or in our traditions.
But why? If God allows, why?
Well, that's what the answer should be. But and that's exactly what the answer should be. I'm gonna use that next time. No, but it's interesting because obviously every family and culture has their own traditions, and it's kind of just, well, if that is how it's always been, then to change that is really quite difficult, because that's just how it's always been.
And I think we need to sort of understand what is Islamic and what is culture. I think there's a lot of good in culture. I'm not saying throw it out. It's not about throwing it out, but it's understanding. Okay, this is culture. This is Islam. A lot of the culture from back home, there's a lot of respect that comes from that, and I think that's beautiful, and that is part of Islam as well. But there's a lot of things which were considered as norm back home, which are not here, and what is considered as norm here are very much, oh my God, you can't be doing that. This is just wrong. Something as simple as watching movies, going to the cinema. I know in East Africa, in the olden times, it was only the bad boys that went to the movies. It's like normal good kids didn't go to see to the cinema. So a lot of people who'd grown up in East Africa coming here, because it's the norm to go to the cinema here, it's like they found it very difficult. But again, looking at it from an Islamic perspective, is it wrong? If you're going as a family and you're going to be watching, a movie which is, not got any, things that are haram in it, which is very difficult nowadays, I suppose, but where I'm coming from. So it's sort of realizing, okay, does Islam allow this?
Like you get animation movies sometimes that are nice and
so, they had, I think, a viewing of the Prince of Persia movie in the cinema a while back. I wasn't
Princess
in town.
Of Rome as well.
Yeah. So, there are, is that wrong then?
Yeah.
So just going into the cinema, I've considered that wrong because culturally, that was back home, that was wrong. But here it's not. It's not only bad people that go. So I think for her to do her research on Islam, find out what Islam actually says, and then go to her parents. And when they're saying something, actually say, but if God is allowing this, why do we have a problem with it? Yeah. And a lot of the times there'll be, but you have to get married in this culture. But again, if I'm not going against God, God will take care of that. Yeah. Where is God in this picture? Why am I so worried about what other people will think, whereas I'm not worrying about what God will think?
Absolutely. No, that's definitely true. This next question is actually very interesting and somewhat, I guess, controversial. This person said, there's a scholar in my community who has been making sexual overtures to young girls and women in his mosque. When I tried to raise this issue with the management committee, I was met with suspicion and accused of lying. How do I go about handling such a sensitive issue? Now that's quite a I guess difficult topic to try and tackle. I think, as I was saying earlier, I think it's something that does need to be discussed. That probably does happen more often than we think. Yeah. Of course, not all the time, but probably does happen more often than we think. And I do think that, in my opinion, we as a community tend to brush it under the carpet or think of it as taboo or just pretend it doesn't happen at all. Yeah. So what do you have to say to this person?
I agree. I think it's something that has to be discussed. I think, in the end, we've got to realize that these scholars are men, are human beings, and they do have desires, and they may fall foul to those desires. And we're not saying all scholars are like this, but there may be the odd one here or there that does things wrong and should be pulled up on it. It's not something that we should, it's not saying that, Islam is wrong. It's not saying that all scholars are wrong. It's saying this particular scholar has done something wrong and we need to make sure we handle it, and we don't just ignore it or brush it under the carpet, because what that's doing is giving license for him to continue, and that's wrong.
Is what I'm playing devil's advocate here, is what he's doing wrong if he's doing it in a halal way?
I believe it is, because I believe he's in a place of power, in a place of authority, and therefore he would be abusing that power and authority by doing anything, even if it's in a halal way, with people who
he's in a position of trust, basically.
Yes,
isn't he?
yeah. So it's like a teacher-student relationship. Yeah. If it's someone who's not coming to you for help, who's not coming to you for advice, who's not coming to you because they're in trouble, then that's different. If it's someone you've just met outside and you want to have a halal relationship with them, that's fine. But if they're coming to you because of your post, then you are like their counselor, their teacher, however you want to look at it, and you have a position of trust and responsibility, and I think then you cannot get into a relationship with that person.
And why does it happen? I mean, I think it does happen, as I said, quite often. Why do you think that it can happen so easily in that situation? What is it that...
There's lots of things. I mean, it's very difficult for I suppose a person to as someone who's going to the scholar, I suppose you would accept anything that scholar said and did, because you would feel that they know best. They're the religious person.
Yeah, so you let them set the boundaries as a result.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that again, so if they're doing something, you'd be thinking, oh, am I overthinking this? Maybe it's not wrong. Maybe it's okay. Yeah. Because he wouldn't do that. He's a scholar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And again, I think we need to know,
check ourselves,
Islam ourselves, and sort of say, if this feels uncomfortable, if this feels wrong, then there must be something in it. Yeah. Or I need to trust myself. Yeah. And actually pull him up on it.
So if this person is not getting much response from management or the management committee, what should they do?
I would suggest that they actually get the people who have been involved, because at the moment it's hearsay. She's going on behalf of these women. So management's not going to take hearsay on. So she needs to encourage the women who have actually had advancements made to them, have felt uncomfortable, have, and actually can give examples of what the scholar's done.
Or if they don't have any proof.
Again, if you have more than one person going up and saying something, or even if you have one person, I think management has to sort of take it into account. Okay, it's he say and she says, but the fact that someone has felt uncomfortable, maybe they would put into place certain things which would reduce the chance of that happening again. So, just asking him to keep his door open when he's talking to someone in his office. Little things like that. I mean, safeguarding is a huge thing at the moment because of everything that's been happening. And policies are being put into place. So there are already policies within mosques anyway. It's just a matter of ensuring that everything's been, dotted and crossed and so forth.
And I think the issue is a lot of the time that everywhere and all organizations have policies, but it's about rolling them out and actually implementing the policies. It's not, for example, what's been going on, we're seeing in the news quite often, all of these organizations, they had policies, of course they did, but it's more about,
but
they weren't being implemented or rolled out, or staff weren't being trained, or that kind of thing. So I think it's important for our mosques to just reiterate the level of what we expect of our scholars and our resident sort of alims, etc. as well. With regards to safeguarding, probably.
And maybe this might be the push that the managing committee require in order to implement these policies that are already there, like you're saying. So I think it is very, very difficult for the managing committee to take it on board when it's hearsay, because it's you're hearing it from someone else. So that's much more difficult, because this is someone's reputation, and it's a scholar, which is again a huge deal.
So I can imagine it would be very difficult for those women to come forward and say something
if they're being guaranteed that they will be heard. Then I think that would be the first step. And if again, I think as a Jamaat, we need to have the managing committee open to that. So God forbid if anything like this does happen, the women are comfortable enough to go and tell them, because until they know and have been made aware of it, they can't do anything about it. So it's not that they wouldn't, it's just that they need to be made aware of it, but they need to be made aware in a way that it is the person who's been affected who's actually saying it, so it's not hearsay.
And I've seen quite often on social media, when things like this happen, you'll often find people talking about it on social media, that this person did this and this person did that. What if someone has abused their trust and done something, or abused their position of power and done something that's wrong or haram, or however you want to put it? Is that something that's okay to sort of call that person out and warn other people? What should someone do in that situation?
It has to be done, I think, in an official capacity. So it has to go through the managing committee, and that person has a right to then defend themselves. By you talking about them behind their back, they don't have a right to defend it. So he may have said something and you've taken it a totally different way, and he may not meant how you've taken it. So it's not fair for you to put it out on social media that this person's like this. That's ghibah. That's actually backbiting, and that's wrong. That's haram. Full stop. So it's important to do it in a way that you're put in a position. He's put in a position where he has to explain what he meant by what he said or did.
Okay, thank you so much. That's a very interesting conversation as always, and thank you so much for joining us on our show today. We've actually come to the end of our show today. We are always welcoming your questions, your problems, any issues that you may be having. Sister Masuma will always try and tackle the questions that you send in on email on hearttoheart@safirtv.com. Thank you so much for joining us on our show today. Assalamu alaikum.